Hello there, my sleepy fellows. Tonight, let's wander quietly into the magical corners of the wizarding world, not rushing off to classes or chasing after flying brooms, but slowing down, breathing in the gentle hum of enchantment that lingers, always just beneath the surface. This isn't a story of great battles or daring escapes, but of quiet wonder, of craftsmanship, of the ancient magic hidden in wood, core, and steady, careful hands. Tonight, we visit Ollivanders. You know the place, don't you? The small, slightly crooked shop tucked along Diagon Alley, the windows dusted with age, the shelves towering high, stacked with slender boxes that hum softly with quiet power. There's something timeless about Ollivanders. Step through the door, and the world slows. The air smells faintly of wood shavings, old parchment, and the tiniest trace of something sharper: phoenix feather, unicorn hair, dragon heartstring, the materials that sleep inside in each box, waiting to choose or be chosen. And in the heart of it all is Garrick Ollivander, the Wandmaker, his silver hair wild as wisps of smoke, pale eyes sharp as moonlight, hands steady with the knowledge of countless generations. But even Ollivander, with all his knowledge, holds secrets. How are the legendary wands crafted? What ancient rituals, what forgotten spells breathe life into wood and core? Tonight, under the gentle flicker of lanterns, we'll explore that mystery, a peaceful, winding journey through quiet workshops, forgotten forests, and the soft, hidden magic that guides a wand from simple branch to legendary companion. So settle in, let your thoughts quiet, your breathing slow, and if you enjoy gentle wanders through the wizarding world, feel free to like this tale, subscribe, and drift along with us. Because the magic, the real magic, begins softly. Where the sawdust settles, the wood sings beneath skilled fingers, and the wand waits to find its true home. Shall we begin? The narrow streets of Diagon Alley were quiet tonight, the lanterns glowing gently above doorways, soft pools of golden light stretching across the cobbled stones. Most of the shops had long since closed, their windows dark, their shelves asleep. But at the far end of the alley, just where the shadows gathered, a faint light still glowed behind the dusty windows of Ollivanders. Makers of fine wands since 382 BC, and inside, quietly moving among the towering shelves, was a familiar figure, Garrick Ollivander. His silver hair was slightly ruffled, as though the night breeze had followed him in, his pale eyes sharp, though softened tonight by quiet thought rather than the usual sharp inspection of wand and wizard. It wasn't often that Ollivander allowed anyone into his workshop after hours, but tonight was different. Harry Potter stood near the counter, his green eyes curious, watching as the old wandmaker gently sorted through a collection of slender wand boxes. Beside him, Hermione Granger leaned closer, her gaze sharp with quiet wonder, a worn book tucked beneath her arm. Ron Weasley hovered a step behind them, his expression half curious, half uncertain. "You sure we're allowed back here?" he asked quietly, eyeing the endless shelves that seemed to stretch far beyond what the little shop should hold. Ollivander chuckled softly, the sound curling like warm smoke through the quiet space. Aloud, he echoed, his voice smooth as polished wood. Perhaps not, but tonight I find myself in the mood to share a little history. The room smelled faintly of sawdust and old parchment, of wood oils and magic too old to name. It was peaceful here, ancient, like stepping into a space untouched by the rush of time. Harry glanced around, shelves upon shelves of wand boxes, tall, crooked ladders leaning against the walls, the soft hum of sleeping magic drifting through the air. He'd been here before, years ago, when a wand had chosen him. But he'd never seen beyond the front room, never wondered how the legendary wands were made, until tonight. Hermione tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, her voice a quiet murmur. You make them here? All of them? Ollivander nodded, his pale eyes glittering softly in the lantern light. Here and elsewhere, where the wood grows, where the old cores are gathered. But this is where the true shaping happens. The old Wandmaker gestured gently toward the back of the shop, toward a hidden door, its wood carved with delicate runes, glowing faintly in the quiet. Would you like to see? He asked. The three friends exchanged a look, quiet, curious, and together they stepped toward the unknown, into the heart of wandlore and the ancient magic that waited beyond. The door at the back of Ollivanders opened with the faintest creak, not loud, not startling, just the quiet sound of wood shifting after years of keeping its secrets safe. A soft warmth drifted from the hidden space beyond, carrying the faintest scent of polished wood, forest moss, and something older, something magical that settled gently around them, as though the walls themselves recognized visitors who had come, not to rush, not to demand, but simply to listen, to see. Ollivander stepped through first, his silver hair glowing softly beneath the lantern light, his movements unhurried, graceful, as though he had walked this path countless times, always with quiet reverence. Harry, Hermione, and Ron followed, their footsteps light upon the worn floorboards. The room beyond wasn't large, but it felt vast, in the way ancient places often do. It was circular, its walls lined with shelves and workbenches, neat stacks of wood resting against the far wall, tools carefully arranged, the glow of small enchanted lanterns casting a steady golden light across the space. In the center stood a tall workbench of polished oak, its surface smooth with years of gentle use, delicate shavings of wood curling across its edges, thin strands of unicorn hair and phoenix feather glimmering faintly beneath glass domes. There was no clutter, no chaos, only the quiet order of a master craftsman's workshop, a place where magic was shaped, not with grand gestures, but with care, with patience, with the steady hum of hands and heart working together. Hermione's eyes widened softly, her fingers tracing the edges of a nearby shelf. It's beautiful, she whispered. Ron, his gaze drifting to a collection of wand cores arranged neatly in small, velvet-lined drawers, gave a low whistle. And complicated. Ollivander chuckled gently, moving toward the workbench. Wand making is not fast work, he said softly. It is a conversation between wood, core, magic, and time. Harry stood quietly, his eyes drifting across the room, the walls lined with bundles of wandwood, slender, graceful lengths of holly, ash, willow, oak, each piece humming faintly, waiting. The room felt alive, not bustling, but breathing, as though the magic tucked within the walls stirred with gentle curiosity at their presence. As they explored, Harry's gaze was drawn to the far corner of the room, where a tall, narrow cabinet stood, its wood dark and old, its surface carved with delicate runes so faint they seemed to vanish into the grain. The cabinet hummed softly, not in a way that warned, but in a way that invited, curious, steady, ancient. Ollivander followed Harry's gaze and smiled faintly. "Ah, the archives," he murmured, "where the oldest secrets sleep." Hermione tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. "Archives?" Ollivander stepped toward the cabinet, resting his hand lightly upon the carved wood. "Not every wand is made for a student," he explained softly. "Some are experiments, some unfinished, some waiting for the right hands or for the right time." He opened the cabinet with gentle care, and inside, resting upon slender shelves, were dozens of small, worn boxes, their surfaces etched with ancient symbols, their edges softened by years, their contents quiet, waiting. The hum of magic deepened, not harsh, not loud, just steady, as though the room itself leaned in, listening. Ollivander reached inside, drawing out a slender, aged wand, its surface smooth as water-polished stone, its wood dark and unfamiliar. "This," he whispered, holding the wand delicately between his fingers, "was the first wand my grandfather ever made, from wood long forgotten, with a core even more rare." The trio leaned closer, watching, listening, the hum of magic a steady presence beneath their feet. Ollivander turned the wand gently in his hand, and as he did, a soft shimmer drifted through the air, like moonlight rippling across still water, the faintest echo of ancient magic stirring within the wood. "It never chose a wizard," Ollivander explained, his voice low and steady. "It waits for someone who understands its history, its weight, its patience." The room settled into quiet again, the air warm, the magic pulsing softly around them, gentle, present, as though the wands themselves, the wood, the cores, the workshop, all watched and waited. Ron gave a small, sleepy chuckle. "Makes you wonder how much magic we never even see, never even notice." Hermione smiled softly. "It's all around us, always has been." Harry's fingers drifted across his own wand, the hollywood warm beneath his touch, the phoenix feather core humming faintly, familiar, steady. He understood now, in a way he hadn't before. Wands weren't tools or weapons, not really. They were companions, partners in magic, shaped by careful hands, ancient knowledge, and the quiet, patient hum of time. As Ollivander returned the unfinished wand to its box, the room seemed to exhale, the hum of magic settling once more, steady, content. "You see," Ollivander whispered, his pale eyes thoughtful, "the greatest wands, the legendary ones, are not made in haste, nor with arrogance, but with understanding, with care." The workshop fell into peaceful silence, the soft glow of lanterns drifting across the shelves, the quiet hum of sleeping magic settling around them. The first layer of mystery revealed, but more still waiting, patient, gentle, beyond the worn wooden door, and deeper into the Wandmaker's forgotten world. The soft hum of magic still lingered in the air as the old Wandmaker carefully closed the cabinet, the faint glow from the ancient runes along its surface dimming like a candle sighing into sleep. The workshop settled once more into its quiet rhythm, the steady flicker of lanterns, the gentle creak of old floorboards, the ever-present scent of polished wood and parchment. But Harry could feel it, that subtle undercurrent of something more, not urgent, not alarming, but waiting. Ollivander's pale eyes drifted toward the back wall, where a second door stood tucked between tall shelves, nearly hidden by bundles of wandwood stacked neatly in rows. The door was old, its surface worn smooth, carved with symbols even more faded than the runes on the cabinet. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Ollivander's voice, quiet as always, broke the stillness. "There are places," he began softly, "where wandlore and nature meet in ways few understand." He gestured toward the door. "Would you care to see?" The three friends exchanged a glance, Harry's quiet curiosity, Hermione's thoughtful wonder, Ron's hesitant but intrigued expression. Then together, they nodded. Ollivander moved toward the hidden door, lifting a simple silver key from a chain around his neck. The key shimmered faintly as he turned it in the lock, the sound soft, almost like the rustle of leaves in the wind. The door creaked open, and beyond lay the unknown. It wasn't a room, they realized, but a passage leading gently downward, carved directly into the stone, its walls smooth, cool, lined with faint carvings of vines, leaves, and stars. The air was different here, not stale, but fresh, carrying with it the earthy scent of moss, wood, rain-soaked leaves, like the quiet breath of a forest after a spring storm. The four of them stepped inside, the door closing softly behind them, not trapping, just gently sealing the space, preserving its hidden calm. The passageway twisted and curved, the only light coming from small enchanted orbs that hovered along the ceiling, glowing softly like fireflies. And slowly, the stone walls began to change. Where once they were solid, cool stone, now they shimmered faintly, their surfaces rippling, almost translucent, revealing glimpses beyond. Through the shimmering walls, they saw forests, ancient trees towering high, sunlight filtering through emerald leaves, narrow streams trickling over mossy rocks. Hermione's eyes widened in quiet awe. "It's a magical projection," she whispered, "an echo of the forest, hidden beneath the shop. Ollivander smiled softly. Not a projection, Miss Granger, a doorway of sorts. The passage opened, and suddenly they were standing at the edge of a hidden forest, not within the shop, not entirely outside, but somewhere in between. The trees were tall, their trunks wide and knotted with age, their leaves whispering softly overhead, the ground covered in moss and fallen leaves, the air cool and still. It wasn't dark, nor bright, but filled with that soft, glowing twilight that settled between day and night, when the world slowed and magic whispered more freely. Birdsong drifted gently through the trees, and faintly, the hum of enchantments, old and subtle, pulsed beneath their feet. The Wandwood Grove, Ollivander explained softly, stepping forward. Hidden, protected, where the finest wandwoods have grown for centuries. The trees themselves hummed faintly, their branches swaying ever so gently despite the still air, as though they recognized the Wandmaker and those who followed him. "It's beautiful," Harry murmured, his voice low with wonder. Ron glanced around, eyes wide. "Blimey, how does nobody know this is here?" Ollivander chuckled quietly. "Because few care to look, and fewer still are shown." They wandered slowly through the grove, the soft moss cushioning their steps, the trees parting gently to reveal narrow paths, small streams, patches of sunlight filtering through ancient leaves. Some of the trees Harry recognized: holly, willow, oak, elder, their presence familiar, yet somehow deeper, more alive than he'd ever seen. Others he didn't know. Trees with silver leaves, bark that shimmered faintly with magical runes, branches that hummed softly when the breeze stirred. "These," Ollivander explained gently, resting his hand against the trunk of one ancient tree with smooth dark bark, "are the rarest, the oldest, the ones that choose their own time and their own Wandmaker." Hermione leaned closer, her eyes wide with quiet awe. "The wood, it chooses?" Ollivander nodded, his expression full of quiet respect. "A wand chooses the wizard, yes, but before that, the wood chooses the wand." They walked in peaceful silence for a while, exploring the grove, listening to the whispers of leaves, the hum of ancient enchantments drifting through the air like a forgotten song. Then they reached it, a clearing, small, tucked between the oldest trees, its grass soft and glowing faintly in the twilight. In the center stood a single tree unlike any they'd seen. Its bark was pale, smooth as silk, its leaves silver gold, shimmering softly as though kissed by starlight, and from its branches, long, slender shoots of wood drifted downward, each humming faintly, waiting. Ollivander approached with reverence, his voice little more than a breath. "The Heartwood tree," he whispered, "source of the rarest wands, those crafted only when the time, the magic, and the wizard align." The three friends that stood still, the quiet weight of the moment settling gently around them, not heavy, but full, steady, peaceful. Harry stepped forward, his eyes drifting across the tree's delicate branches, the hum of magic wrapping around him, calm, familiar, patient. The truth of wandlore was more than crafting, more than spells. It was understanding, connection, the steady, gentle shaping of magic with respect, with time. And tonight, beneath the glowing canopy of the hidden grove, that quiet truth was revealed. The clearing around the Heartwood tree held a stillness unlike any they'd known before. It wasn't an empty silence, but one filled with quiet awareness, as though the grove itself, the trees, the ground, even the air, were watching, waiting, listening. The leaves above whispered faintly, stirred by no wind they could feel, only the gentle hum of old magic weaving through the branches. Ollivander stood beside the Heartwood tree, his hand resting lightly on its smooth silver bark. His voice remained soft, as though speaking any louder would disturb the peace folded into this hidden place. This tree, he explained quietly, is older than the shop, older than Diagon Alley itself. It was planted when wandlore was still young, when the first wandmakers understood that magic and nature are not separate things, but partners. The trio listened, their eyes wide with quiet wonder. Harry let his gaze drift across the slender shoots hanging from the branches, each one glowing softly, their surfaces etched with faint patterns, not carved, but grown, as though the tree itself whispered the language of magic into its wood. Hermione stepped closer, her fingers hovering over a delicate branch. So the wands, they're not cut from the tree? Ollivander shook his head gently. No, the tree offers them when it's ready. Ron, his voice still low, but carrying a note of curiosity, asked, "And how does it know? Who's ready? What wand's needed?" A small smile touched Ollivander's lips. The same way a wand chooses its wizard, quiet understanding, patient magic. They wandered the clearing for a while, the soft grass springy beneath their feet, the trees swaying gently as if in approval. It was peaceful, but beneath that peace lay the quiet suggestion that there was more, hidden, waiting. Beyond the grove, a faint path wound through the trees, barely visible, its edges softened by moss and fallen leaves, as though it had not been walked in many years. Harry noticed it first, his green eyes narrowing slightly with gentle curiosity. "Where does that lead?" he asked softly. Ollivander followed his gaze, his expression thoughtful. "Few have followed that path," he murmured. "It leads deeper to the old workshop." The old workshop. The words settled softly in the air, neither urgent nor ominous, but carrying a quiet promise of forgotten knowledge, of deeper truths. Hermione's brow furrowed gently. "Is it safe?" Ollivander's pale eyes glinted faintly. "Safe enough for those who walk with respect. No grand invitation, no warnings, only choice." The clearing around the Heartwood tree held a stillness unlike any they'd known before. It wasn't an empty silence, but one filled with quiet awareness, as though the grove itself, the trees, the ground, even the air, were watching, waiting, listening. The leaves above whispered faintly, stirred by no wind they could feel, only the gentle hum of old magic weaving through the branches. Ollivander stood beside the heartwood tree, his hand resting lightly on its smooth silver bark. His voice remained soft, as though speaking any louder would disturb the peace folded into this hidden place. This tree, he explained quietly, is older than the shop, older than Diagon Alley itself. It was planted when wandlore was still young, when the first wandmakers understood that magic and nature are not separate things, but partners. The trio listened, their eyes wide with quiet wonder. Harry let his gaze drift across the slender shoots hanging from the branches, each one glowing softly, their surfaces etched with faint patterns, not carved, but grown, as though the tree itself whispered the language of magic into its wood. Hermione stepped closer, her fingers hovering over a delicate branch. So the wands, they're not cut from the tree? Ollivander shook his head gently. No, the tree offers them when it's ready. Ron, his voice still low, but carrying a note of curiosity, asked, "And how does it know? Who's ready? What wand's needed?" A small smile touched Ollivander's lips. The same way a wand chooses its wizard, quiet understanding, patient magic. They wandered the clearing for a while, the soft grass springy beneath their feet, the trees swaying gently as if in approval. It was peaceful, but beneath that peace lay the quiet suggestion that there was more, hidden, waiting. Beyond the grove, a faint path wound through the trees, barely visible, its edges softened by moss and fallen leaves, as though it had not been walked in many years. Harry noticed it first, his green eyes narrowing slightly with gentle curiosity. "Where does that lead?" he asked softly. Ollivander followed his gaze, his expression thoughtful. "Few have followed that path," he murmured. "It leads deeper to the old workshop." The old workshop. The word settled softly in the air, neither urgent nor ominous, but carrying a quiet promise of forgotten knowledge, of deeper truths. Hermione's brow furrowed gently. "Is it safe?" Ollivander's pale eyes glinted faintly. "Safe enough for those who walk with respect. No grand invitation, no warnings, only choice." The three friends exchanged a glance, quiet, steady, understanding passing between them, and together they followed the path. The trees pressed close as they walked, their branches arching overhead like a protective canopy. Faint light filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns upon the mossy ground. Here, the magic deepened. It wasn't louder or brighter, only stronger, woven gently into every leaf, every stone, every whisper of wind. They passed fallen logs covered in soft green moss. Tiny glowing mushrooms nestled at their base, and the occasional flash of small, enchanted creatures darting between the trees, too quick to catch, their presence like the memory of a dream. The path twisted and turned, never harsh, never hurried, and as they walked, they began to notice the carvings. Along the trunks of certain trees, delicate runes and symbols, so faint they seemed part of the bark itself. Hermione paused beside one, tracing the shape of a phoenix feather etched into the wood. These, they mark the trees chosen for the most powerful wands, she murmured. Ollivander nodded. Indeed, and some are still waiting. Further along the path, another carving appeared, an image of a sleeping dragon, its form curled gracefully into the bark, its eyes closed, peaceful, watchful. Ron tilted his head. Does that mean the tree's asleep? Ollivander chuckled quietly. In a way, the magic rests until it is needed. They walked on, the forest deepening, the magic growing softer, yet richer, as though the very ground beneath their feet hummed with old, patient enchantments. Eventually, the path opened into a small glade. Nestled in the center stood the old workshop. It was simple, its walls made of weathered stone and ancient timber, moss curling along its edges, small enchanted lanterns glowing faintly beneath the eaves. The door was carved with familiar symbols, the same delicate runes of wood and core, the same careful artistry that marked Ollivander's shop in Diagon Alley, but here, older, rawer, untouched by the polish of commerce, preserved as it had always been. The group stood quietly for a moment, letting the stillness of the place settle over them. Ollivander approached the door, his hand resting gently against the wood. The old workshop, he whispered, where the first wandmakers learned to listen. Harry, Hermione, and Ron followed him inside. The workshop was small, cozy, its shelves lined with unfinished wands, tools crafted by hand, ancient scrolls curled gently beside bundles of raw wandwood. The air smelled faintly of earth, parchment, and magic, soft as the hum of leaves outside. It wasn't grand, but it carried the quiet weight of history, of knowledge passed down, not in books alone, but in whispered lessons, in steady hands, in patient hearts. The three friends explored the space, their footsteps quiet, their eyes wide with wonder. Among the shelves, they found sketches of wands long forgotten, notes written in delicate, looping script, fragments of cores preserved beneath glass. And at the heart of it all, a journal, its cover worn, its pages filled with the soft, steady history of wand-making, a legacy of care, of understanding, of quiet, unseen magic. The deeper truth of how legendary wands are not crafted by ambition, but by patience, by respect, by listening. And as the lanterns glowed softly and the leaves whispered gently outside, they understood. The greatest magic is never loud, but steady, waiting for those who care enough to see. The old workshop was quiet, like a room that had been waiting for curious hearts to wander inside for years, or perhaps even centuries. The faint golden glow from the enchanted lanterns cast soft pools of light across the weathered wooden floor. Dust drifted lazily in the air, swirling like gentle memories caught in the beams. Harry, Hermione, and Ron moved slowly through the space, their footsteps light, their voices hushed, as though they were inside the pages of a living story, one that whispered to them softly from every shelf, every workbench, every carefully preserved object. Ollivander stood near the entrance, allowing them to explore, his pale eyes calm, quietly observing as they made their own choices. their own small discoveries. Hermione's fingers brushed along a low shelf filled with old wand sketches, delicate drawings on faded parchment, designs for wands that had never been made or had been forgotten by time. "Look at this one," she murmured, holding up a parchment for the others to see. The drawing was of a slender, twisted wand made from dark wood, its handle carved in the shape of a tiny sleeping dragon. Notes scribbled in the margin hinted at an experimental core, a feather from a magical creature Harry had never heard of. Ron tilted his head, his voice still carrying that gentle wonder. "Imagine a wand from a dragon's feather." Ollivander's voice drifted softly from behind them. "Not all experiments succeed, but each teaches something." Harry, meanwhile, had wandered toward the far corner of the room, where an old wooden chest sat partially hidden beneath a workbench. Its lid was slightly ajar, revealing bundles of raw wandwood inside, lengths of wood with the bark still clinging to their surface, faint pulses of magic drifting from them like quiet heartbeats. He knelt beside the chest, his fingers hovering just above the wood. "These haven't been shaped yet?" Ollivander nodded. "They wait for the right time, for the right craftsman, for the right understanding." It wasn't about rushing or forcing the wood to become something it wasn't ready to be. It was about listening, waiting, and letting the magic unfold, patiently, naturally, as it always had. Harry carefully replaced the lid, standing once more, the hum of untouched magic still faint beneath his fingertips. Across the room, Hermione had discovered another shelf, this one lined with ancient scrolls wrapped in silk ties. She gently unrolled one, revealing old wandlore written in elegant script, stories of trees chosen for their magical properties, creatures whose gifts became the core of legendary wands, rituals long forgotten by modern wandmakers. Ron, meanwhile, hovered near a cabinet filled with tiny vials, their contents glimmering faintly under the lantern light. Each vial held a different core, strands of unicorn hair, delicate phoenix feathers, shimmering scales from magical beasts, even a few unidentifiable materials that pulsed faintly with quiet, patient power. "It's incredible," Ron whispered, shaking his head. "There's so much here, and hardly anyone even knows it exists." Ollivander's eyes softened. Some knowledge chooses when to be seen. They explored a while longer, gently, without urgency, each discovery a soft invitation to understand more, to see not just the wands, but the heart behind their creation. Eventually, they came to a choice. In the center of the room, resting upon an old oak workbench, were 3 pieces of wandwood, carefully placed side by side, each humming faintly, as though waiting. One was smooth and pale, the wood carrying a silver sheen that reflected the lantern light softly. The second was darker, its surface knotted with tiny swirling patterns, the magic beneath it steady, deep, strong. The third was rich, reddish-brown, its grain twisted slightly, alive with quiet warmth and curiosity. Ollivander spoke gently. "If you were to craft not just a wand, but a companion for your magic, which would you choose?" It wasn't a test, only a moment to listen, to feel. Hermione approached the pale silver wood, her fingers hovering above it, her expression thoughtful. This feels ancient, wise. Ron stepped toward the reddish-brown wood, his hand resting lightly against it. This one's lively, curious, stubborn, maybe. Harry moved to the dark, knotted wood, its hum grounding, steady, like the quiet magic of the earth beneath his feet. He smiled softly. This feels like strength. Ollivander nodded, pleased. No choice is wrong, only different. Wand making, like magic, like people, is shaped by understanding. There was no pressure to craft, no urgency to decide, only the gentle awareness that every choice in magic and in life begins softly, patiently, when you're ready to see. The old workshop settled into quiet stillness once more, the soft golden glow of lanterns casting gentle light across the ancient workbench. The 3 lengths of wandwood rested side by side, humming faintly, their magic content to wait, to be understood, not rushed. Harry, Hermione, and Ron lingered near the bench, the soft hum of the hidden grove beyond the workshop filtering in like a distant song carried by the leaves. Ollivander stood by the far wall, gently rolling up the parchment Hermione had been reading, his pale eyes thoughtful, patient, as though allowing them space to feel, to see, in their own time. Harry's fingers brushed lightly along the dark, knotted wood, the hum beneath its surface steady, grounded, like the quiet pulse of the earth itself. It reminded him not of battles or spells, but of strength born from patience, of magic that waited, quietly, to be understood. Hermione's eyes lingered on the silvery wood, her expression calm, reflective. The magic there felt old, wise, carrying echoes of the stars above and the forgotten stories written in the patterns of the night sky. Ron, his hand resting lightly on the reddish-brown wood, gave a small smile, his blue eyes bright with quiet curiosity. The wood felt alive beneath his palm, full of warmth, of possibility, of untamed magic that would only reveal itself in its own time. For a while, they stood in silence, no pressure, no decisions to be made, only listening. Ollivander's voice, when it came, was soft, steady, the same as it had always been. "There is a truth," he began, his hand resting lightly upon a worn leather-bound journal on the shelf beside him, "that wandlore, and perhaps all magic, shares." The trio turned their attention to him, their expressions curious, unhurried. "A wand," Ollivander continued gently, "is not merely crafted, but discovered. Its shape, its core, its spirit is already present, hidden, waiting to be revealed." He opened the journal with care, revealing delicate sketches of wands long forgotten, notes scribbled in looping, steady script, fragments of wand lore passed down through generations. "This workshop," he said quietly, "this grove, this workbench, they are not where wands are made, but where they awaken." The words settled softly into the room, like mist curling around ancient stones. Hermione tilted her head, thoughtful, You mean the wand already exists before you shape it? Ollivander nodded. In essence, yes. We do not impose, we listen, guide, invite the wood, the core, the magic to reveal itself. Ron rubbed the back of his neck. Blimey, makes the whole thing sound more like making a friend than making a tool. The old wandmaker smiled faintly. Perhaps that's all a wand truly is. A companion in the quiet, in the magic, in the journey. Harry's eyes drifted once more to the wandwood upon the bench. For the first time, he saw beyond its shape, beyond its texture, to the quiet pulse of magic beneath its surface. Steady, waiting, as though the wood itself already held stories, dreams, possibilities, just waiting for the right hand, the right moment to set them free. The realization settled over him, calm, steady, satisfying. The greatest wands, the legendary ones spoken of in quiet tones throughout the wizarding world, weren't forged through force, but through patience, understanding, respect. They were not trophies, but quiet promises. Ollivander closed the journal with care, his eyes shining softly in the lantern light. The wand chooses the wizard, he repeated gently. But first, the wood, the magic, the story, chooses to be seen. The workshop settled into silence again, peaceful, complete. Harry, Hermione, and Ron exchanged quiet glances, their hearts lighter, their understanding deeper. No spells had been cast, no loud enchantments filled the air, but tonight they had learned something far more powerful. The magic behind a wand, behind any true power, begins softly, patiently, and grows when it is respected, when it is listened to. And beneath the quiet branches of the hidden grove, with the leaves whispering like forgotten songs, and the walls of the old workshop holding their gentle secrets, they understood the real magic had been here all along. The words settled softly into the room, like mist curling around ancient stones. Hermione tilted her head, thoughtful. You mean the wand already exists before you shape it? Ollivander nodded. In essence, yes. We do not impose, we listen, guide, invite the wood, the core, the magic to reveal itself. Ron rubbed the back of his neck. Blimey, makes the whole thing sound more like making a friend than making a tool. The old wandmaker smiled faintly. Perhaps that's all a wand truly is. A companion in the quiet, in the magic, in the journey. Harry's eyes drifted once more to the wandwood upon the bench. For the first time, he saw beyond its shape, beyond its texture, to the quiet pulse of magic beneath its surface. Steady, waiting, as though the wood itself already held stories, dreams, possibilities, just waiting for the right hand, the right moment to set them free. The realization settled over him, calm, steady, satisfying. The greatest wands, the legendary ones spoken of in quiet tones throughout the wizarding world, weren't forged through force, but through patience, understanding, respect. They were not trophies, but quiet promises. Ollivander closed the journal with care, his eyes shining softly in the lantern light. "The wand chooses the wizard," he repeated gently. "But first, the wood, the magic, the story chooses to be seen." The workshop settled into silence again, peaceful, complete. Harry, Hermione, and Ron exchanged quiet glances, their hearts lighter, their understanding deeper. No spells had been cast, no loud enchantments filled the air, but tonight they had learned something far more powerful. The magic behind a wand, behind any true power, begins softly, patiently, and grows when it is respected, when it is listened to. And beneath the quiet branches of the hidden grove, with the leaves whispering like forgotten songs, and the walls of the old workshop holding their gentle secrets, they understood the real magic had been here all along. Ollivander paused beside the counter, his eyes soft, steady. "You understand now," he said simply. Harry nodded, his hand resting lightly on his wand, feeling its steady hum, not just as a tool, but as a companion, a partner chosen by magic, by patience, by care. Ron gave a small, sleepy grin. "Suppose I'll look at wands a bit different from now on." Hermione smiled too, her eyes sparkling with quiet wonder. "It's humbling, isn't it?" Ollivander chuckled softly, his voice curling like warm smoke in the air, "as all true magic should be." The lanterns flickered gently overhead. The shelves stood tall and watchful, and beyond the windows, the quiet night settled once more. There was no grand farewell, only understanding. The hidden grove, the ancient workshop, the heartwood tree, all would remain steady, timeless, waiting for those ready to listen. And as they stepped back into the calm of Diagon Alley, the soft golden glow of Ollivanders fading behind them, they carried that quiet truth with them. The greatest magic waits to be seen. Diagon Alley lay quiet beneath a sleepy sky, the stars twinkling softly above the crooked rooftops, lanterns casting faint pools of light across the cobbled streets, every doorway resting, every window glowing gently with the hush of night. Behind them, the faint hum of Ollivanders still lingered in the air, the old shop standing steady as ever, its shelves tall, its boxes neat, its magic tucked quietly away, waiting for the next hand to knock, the next wand to find its home. But now, they understood. Wands weren't simply chosen in a shop, but in the quiet corners of ancient groves, among whispering leaves, within the steady, patient work of wandmakers who listen, who care, who wait. The truth about legendary wands wasn't loud, wasn't marked by grand spells or fame. It lived in wood, shaped by steady hands, in cores carried by magical creatures, in the quiet understanding that real magic grows slowly, gently, always with care. As they made their way back through the winding streets, their footsteps light, the soft hum of understanding settled into their hearts. Harry's wand pulsed faintly in his hand, not as a weapon, but as a companion, a reminder of the patient magic that lives, always, just beneath the surface. The night carried them onward, peaceful, warm, filled with gentle wonder. And as you, dear listener, rest now, let your thoughts wander through hidden groves, through quiet workshops, through the soft magic that weaves its way into every corner of the wizarding world. Let your eyes grow heavy, your breathing slow, your heart settle gently into sleep, knowing the world is full of steady, quiet magic, waiting, always, to be seen. Sleep well, dream softly, and may your journey be guided by understanding, by patience, and by the quiet magic that waits in every corner of Hogwarts and beyond. Good night.